Our walleye's been dry. It's been about 3 weeks now. Everything's pretty well dry. Your main point, the main thing we want to see is dry. Like, the easiest way to tell if it is dry is just by feeling the inside. You can put a pin in there and you can kind of tell the inside of the mouth. Once it's pretty much stiff, you're pretty well dry and ready to do the finish work. Now I did the head separate, so I'm gonna go ahead and put some body filler in between here, and I'll use that to bond the two together. And then I'm gonna have to do some rebuilding of the shrinkage areas. We're just gonna kind of slide this on here. Make sure we get it pretty much where we want it. We want to make sure our head's where it should be. We don't want it push it too far down where we're kind of coming in here and getting a sharp curve down. We just kind of want to have that nice flow. Keep in mind it is shrunk a little bit, so it is going to sit a little bit below. Once we rebuild that, we'll get pretty much where we want to go. We'll just kind of let it set up here, and then we'll start to rebuild a little bit. Now we're got this head back attached on. We're ready to rebuild this head. I'm going to be using the World Class epoxy. I haven't used this before, but it's supposed to thin out really nice, so we're going to give it a try and rebuild this walleye up with that. Yeah, we're going to mix this putty up a 50-50, and then we're just going to rebuild the bottom of this walleye head. Now when rebuilding these heads, we want to kind of start from the lowest point in and then build out. So we're going to start here in the center, and then we're going to kind of build the outer shrunken in areas over top of it, just to give it that depth and gives you that little bit of a crease underneath of it. Yeah, we're basically just blending it into the shrunken areas. It's a little hard to see here on my video, but if you're rebuilding it, you kind of see where the shrunken areas end and the scaly parts start, or the bony parts start, or anything like that. And you're just kind of blending your epoxy into that as smoothly as possible. But overall, I really like working with this epoxy. It seems to work really nice. All I'm doing to blend it is just a little bit of water on my finger, and it'll blend pretty much right in. It kind of gives you the consistency of the old silly putty that you used to play with, but it definitely blends really nice, and it seems like it does the job really well. I used to always use the Magic Smooth, and it was kind of a stickier product to work with. It blended pretty easy, but it was a little harder to get, just because it was a little sticky. This is kind of like a much lighter weight in the epoxy sculpt, magic sculpt type of material. But yeah, I would definitely recommend you trying it and use it on your fish, because it seems like it works really well. But we're just going to blend the rest of these cheeks in. Any parts we see shrinkage on, we're just going to kind of rebuild. We'll rebuild the tongue, we'll rebuild the top of this head also, and we'll get a pretty nice looking fish blended in here. Okay, now we have our cast fins here. These are the fins that we cast earlier. We're going to go ahead and attach them. What I'm going to do is I'm going to super glue them on. If I need to shape them a little bit so that they can fit in, I'll heat them up and they will be pretty manipulable. Now I won't put the paired fins on until after I'm pretty much done painting everything. I'll put them on last, and that'll... Now the paired fins, I'm going to just kind of shape so I can slide them in. I'll paint them separate when I'm done. I'll attach them when I'm done. I'll just have a little bit of a seam to touch up. but it's easier than trying to paint behind the fins or anything like that if you put the paired fins on last. But I will put any of the fins that are parallel with the body. I'm going to go ahead and super glue them on, and I'm going to rebuild them with the same material I was rebuilding the head with. Okay. We're now ready to set our eyes into this walleye. Everything's pretty much rebuilt other than the eyes. I'm going to have to shave a little bit of this off here yet. That should pretty much get us where we want it. It kind of sits right in there. Oops. We'll take a little bit of our putty. We're just going to kind of press it down. Press it down around the edges, and we'll put a little bit around the top. It'll just kind of give something for our eye to sink into. We just want to kind of make sure our pupils facing forward. And when we put our other side in, we want to make sure they're both facing in at the same angle. Once we kind of get that bedded in here, we're going to go ahead and rebuild this under eye skin a little bit. There's a little bit of shrinkage here, and we just want to rebuild it. Once we kind of get it laid, if you have to lay multiple pieces, you'll sometimes get this little seam. We're just going to take a toothpick around and kind of make that a nice smooth here on the bottom. Now these are acrylic eyes, so we can't use metal tools. If you're using glass eyes, you could use a T-pin or something similar to that. We're just going to blend the rest of this eye in. Blend the top of this head in here. Just kind of give it a pretty smooth transition to the eye skin. These eyes here, they have the band here. They have it molded into the eye. So when I'm painting, I'm gonna mask this off with a latex, and I'll paint this, and you'll be able to see that band. Some of the glass eyes don't have that molded into it, so you'll end up having to sculpt that in before. You just don't want to forget that, because that is a important detail to have. You don't want this to be just an eye here. You want to make sure you have your eye and then your band that goes above your eye, and then your head skin. Once I set this other eye, it's going to be pretty well ready to be painted. Once it's all painted, I'll have my fins painted separate. I'm just going to slide that in there. I'll just have a little bit of a seam to touch up here and paint. Once it's all said and done, that just helps you to be able to paint these scales that are behind the fin without having to fight painting, getting over sprayer on the fin or anything like that. Now we're ready to add the color and the details to it, and we should have a pretty nice looking walleye when it's all done.